Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Lindsay Chartan, and before I begin, I want to do a little exercise with everybody. I'd like everybody to go ahead and stand up. Now I need everybody to turn around and face the other person that's behind them. And I just want you guys to embrace in a hug, okay? Yes, I'm serious. I'm going to count it out. I want you guys to hold for about 3 seconds. Let's go, guys. Bring it in. 1, 2, 3. All right, everybody have a seat, have a seat. How's everybody feeling? By a show of hands, how many people in here felt awkward by getting that close to someone? Whose bubble was totally just invaded? Be honest. Well, that's a good show of hands. Welcome to Proxemics, people. This is a field of study that truly fascinates me, so I'm excited to be here today to present my research on the field of Proxemics and what kind of role it plays in professional development. The first thing I'm going to do is give a little bit of background to you guys, is just a reminder. Our textbook defines proxemics as the study of the communicative function of space, the study of how people unconsciously structure spaces, such as the distances between people in their interactions, the layouts of homes and offices, and even possibly the design of cities. It's a very, very vast array of things in the field. Now, according to our textbook, there are 4 distances, okay? The first one is intimate. This is about 6 to 18 inches. This is touching. This is what you guys just did. If this is violated, it can be felt as awkward and inappropriate, okay? This is what just happened for you guys. The second one is personal. Now, personal, think about it as your own bubble. All right. This is about, 18 inches to about 4 feet, roughly about arm's length in front of you. The third thing is social. Now, social is about 4 to 12 feet around you. This is more of an impersonal interaction. Your voice needs to be louder. You need to have better eye contact with the person you're communicating with. And the social distance range is typically about where business is conducted. And the last one is public. Now, public is about 12 to 25 feet. Okay, this is out in the public. You are protected by the public itself, and if anything should happen, you should feel threatened. You can get out quickly and easily. With all that in mind, I set out to research just what personal distances and characteristics were favored in professional situations and development. And I'd like to first say that there is not a lot of research out there on proxemics. After much deliberation, I finally found a few things that were somewhat relevant. The first article I located was an evolutionary take on impoliteness, 3 broad developments in the marking out of socio-proxemic space. In order to first understand why situations are awkward, we need to be able to understand what constitutes politeness and impoliteness and whether these are learned behaviors or they're more inherent. This article started with a history of early humans suggesting that everything we know with regards to personal distancing and spacing is learned behavior, and it varies from culture to culture. Now, impolite behavior and non-observances of cultural differences in personal spacing, this is likely going to cause social conflict and disharmony, which is likely what you just experienced with our little experiment. An interesting point about this article is that it directly suggested that Americans have moved from a collectivist culture to a more individualistic culture because of technology and other societal advances. That's pretty interesting stuff right there, and leads more room for research right there. The second article I located with regards to proxemics is optimal nonverbal communication strategies physicians should engage in to promote positive clinical outcomes. So at surface value, this seems nothing more than a medical article, right? But if you take a closer look, it's really more about what works and what doesn't work in a professional environment in regards to spacing. It's more of a case study of what proxemic behaviors foster professional success in superior and subordinate situations. It actually goes on to say that doctors' nonverbal skills are linked to patient satisfaction, overall patient trust, and compliance. It also said that doctors' nonverbal skills are more important than the medical technical aspect of his job. That's pretty important stuff there as well. There's an entire section on body orientation located within this article, which is what I was way more concerned with. I wanted to know the physicality of what constituted success. So the body orientation for success that this article suggested was a forward lean. You want to make sure your arms are open and not crossed, no crossed legs, no frequent touching, and a distance of about 3 feet. Now this is interesting because this is a business, right? So as we learned in my previous speech, or in my previous point, was that business is conducted roughly 4 to 12 feet. This suggests that clinical doctors, in order for successful clinical outcomes, need to be about 3 feet away from their patients. That's contradictory a little bit. And it also stated that females have less interpersonal distancing than males do. So a male is not allowed to get as close to you as a female would. The next source I got to was a book. Essentially, I got to a point in my research where I could not locate anything else on proxemics because it's really difficult to look into. And I got more interested in finding out how communication scholars really studied the field and what exactly they looked for. So I found this particular source. It's more of a textbook on how to study proxemics. It's literally a hodgepodge of everything nonverbal. I figured it would give me a little bit more insight on other things to research in the field and how to better study it. So I found that most scholars study it by way of projective strategies, which are essentially imagined interactions, or they also study it by laboratory and field studies. And this is going to a certain lab or a facility or a site and just measuring directly the distancing there. And I use this source more so for technology to further my research and to learn future things to research as well. So the next article that I have is called Power Distance and Face Work Strategies. Now, in the workplace, many organizations focus on hiring a diverse group of associates in order to represent their business a little bit better, right? Well, this article goes into culture in an entirely different way than I ever even thought about. It talks about the different distances we should maintain in large distance cultures compared to small distance cultures. An example of a large distance culture are the Japanese, which they are more collectivist. Anything that one person does is directly linked to the next person, and their entire community is connected in that sense. Now, small distance cultures like Americans are more individualist. What we do is all on us. It's not going to affect Joe Blow down the street and his neighbor and his mom, you know. So with proper acknowledgement of these other cultures and what they do, we might be able to better iron out differences and smooth out intercultural clashes. Now, Ting Toomey was credited several times in this article, and she is a communication genius, okay? In my opinion, she is. Now, she defines personal distance as the extent to which cultures and values really tolerate unequal power distribution. Ting Toomey's face work negotiation theory was also expressed in this article, and that's that people in all cultures tend to preserve face in all situations in order to avoid being embarrassed. Now, this possibly explains why we observe politeness and impoliteness and avoiding entering other people's bubbles in order to stave off that embarrassment effect afterwards, right? So by understanding and appreciating other cultures and acceptable social distancing behaviors, we can really better communicate and eliminate that awkwardness factor, which should constitute a more successful professional, or at least in my opinion, it would. The fourth article that I located is called Embodying Sociological Mindfulness, Learning About Social Inequality Through the Body. This particular article, there was an interesting quote by Edward Sapir, forgive me if I'm saying his name incorrectly, and it says, "Body language is an elaborate and secret code that is written nowhere but understood by all." This particular article speaks on behalf of inequality with regards to body positioning and social hierarchies and what we do in regards to that. It says that by nature, we automatically, for example, place someone of higher status than ourselves where they can see and be seen by everyone in order for them to execute their power from that position. So example, your father sits at the head of your dinner table or something like that, an executive sitting at the head of a table as well. This goes over the behaviors that really signify dominance and higher status through a few studies on social stratification by way of nonverbal communication. So in conclusion, while I really couldn't find as much relevant information as I wanted to on proxemics, I did learn quite a few ways to further my research on the field and the various facets of it. And I also had more questions that I will continue to research further. Regardless, I'm now way more aware of cultural differences than I ever have been with regards to social spacing and personal distances. And I am super glad to have been able to share all this with you. Thank you so much for listening.